Determined attackers easily bypass even the most advanced network defenses. Trying to ramp up staff to detect their backdoors can cost thousands of dollars and take months, even years. With Active Countermeasures AI Hunter, we enable junior analysts to detect even the most advanced backdoors in a matter of hours. Sign up for a demo and purchase our product today by visiting activecountermeasures.com/ESW. Active Countermeasures. Make every analyst a hunter. The greatest threat to businesses today isn't the outsider trying to get in. It's the people you trust, the ones who already have the keys, your employees, your contractors, and privileged users. 60% of online attacks are carried out by insiders. To stop these insider threats, you need to see what users are doing before an incident occurs. Observit combats insider threats by detecting risk activity, investigating in minutes, effectively responding, and stopping data lost. Give it a test drive at observit.com/securityweekly. Skeleton keys, golden tickets, forged packs, DC Sync, DC Shadow. The Active Directory attack surface is expanding faster than admins can keep up with. Securing your environment begins with implementing least privilege administrative models, but does not end there. Many organizations send Active Directory syslog events to a SIM platform. However, logs are noisy, of limited scope, and are time-consuming to review and act upon. Active Directory is secure when it's clean, understood, configured properly, monitored closely, and controlled tightly. StealthBits technologies provide solutions that monitor, secure, and detect the latest threats against Active Directory. Visit them today at stealthbits.com to learn more. Are you looking for high-performance data storage that's easy to use yet secure enough for the Department of Defense? Look no further. Racktop Systems gives business software-defined data storage complete with embedded compliance, security, and data encryption. Don't let cyber threats, regulatory demands, or the complexity and growth of your data overwhelm your business. Racktop's high-performance data management platform gives you the tools you need to address the most demanding data challenges. Think beyond storage. To learn more, visit racktopsystems.com. Welcome back, everyone, to Enterprise Security Weekly. I just want a reminder, an announcement, actually, for everyone. If you're attending Black Hat and or DEF CON, bring your bathing suit, because we're going to be at the pool area. Security Weekly has secured at both conferences, at Mandalay Bay and at Caesars, space in the pool area. So we have, they call them bungalows and cabanas. Each pool is different anyway. We've got some kind of bungalow or cabana at each one. And in Black Hat, we'll be doing some briefings as well as trivia. I don't know if it'll necessarily be hacker movie trivia, but it'll be trivia of some kind. So we're doing those segments. And then at DEF CON, the plan is to record some shows. And we actually just secured permission from both hotels to film in those locations. And John, you're going to be in attendance for both Black Hat and DEF CON, which is your triumphant return to DEF CON.
Hooray. Yeah, I'm still not recovered over the last time where I tried to get some sleep at like 2 o'clock in the morning and you decided to bring the party back to the hotel room. And then it was a freaking nightmare. But yes, I will be there. Erica's already trying to squirrel cash aside. She's like, so are you planning on buying beer for everyone again? I'm like, well, no, but yeah we better be ready for that. We better be ready.
Oh, and you got to get in our epic meal times too, because we usually schedule dinners.
Oh, yes. Batistas.
Yeah, and we do a varying. Like, some are not, like, overly expensive, you know, go off-strip or to Batistas, and then we splurge, you know, on a couple of other nights and go to, what was it? Last year we went to the one, what is the one of the top, Stratosphere.
Yeah, Stratosphere.
It was awesome.
And then there was that one time you got married. It was a good time.
I got, well, it was a shotgun vow renewal.
It was a shotgun
vow renewal. Yes. Not a vowel renewal, a vow renewal. Yes, with Elvis, and John was there. I still have the picture hanging up at my house. It's hilarious, dude. My wife was pregnant, and we renewed our vows with Elvis. It was awesome. So who knows? Maybe John and I will renew our vows. You never know.
Might be able to do that
in Vegas. All righty.
Do you promise to periodically show up on the show? Yes.
So Jeff and Adrian are here with us. We're going to cover the enterprise news for this week. Our first story is from Infoblox regarding IoT devices. Now, I was confused as to how they collected this information about IoT device usage in enterprises. Turns out they surveyed about 1,000 IT security professionals or IT leaders. And their quote is, due to the poor security levels of many consumer IoT devices, there is a very real threat posed by those operating under the radar of organizations' traditional security policies. These devices present a weak point for cyber criminals into the network in a serious security risk to the company. Do you necessarily agree wholeheartedly with that statement, or
can I disagree vehemently?
I would agree with it.
I'm going to disagree vehemently.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Adrian's our guest.
Look at RSA this year.
Go ahead, Adrian.
If you look at RSA this year, like a ton of the startups there are really just focused on asset discovery and identification. And it really is still an unsolved problem in a lot of even on traditional networks. We were talking about all the stuff in the cloud and outside of the traditional perimeter, but even inside the traditional perimeter, the state of asset management, that critical control number one, is pretty terrible. And a lot of pen tests I've done, almost every time you find some kind of device with default creds, it's not always going to be a potential entry point from the outside, but you still find it a lot, and those can be leveraged for things. One of the last ones I did completed was for a warehouse, and all their cameras had the defaults on it, and they had APIs on the cameras where it would have been very easy. I was looking at what you can do over the API, and I wrote a script just to prove the point. You can just turn the white balance like all the way up so that, or all the way down so that, your footage is completely black or completely white, and they might not notice that for years, that they've been recording just a white screen or a black screen.
John?
So the reason why I disagree vehemently about this is I don't see this as a separate and distinct problem. The problem is much larger than just IoT devices. The problem is adding in software, adding in new systems, whether it's IoT or an application that's running on a server that's patched and up to date, that is continuously expanding in organizations. Every single year you add more software, you add more stuff, and you don't take the stuff away. So I think it's a problem that everyone's looking at this as just a specific IoT issue, because it is not. It is something that's systematic across an entire organization.
I would agree.
Devices and software.
Yeah, what I think is more scary. I mean, so if I've got an...
Don't I get to break the tie?
All right, Jeff, break the tie.
I agree with both of them.
Yeah, it's not helpful.
I think, Adrian brought up RSA. I think there's a lot of vendors out there that are screaming IoT because it's the next FUD. It's the next way to sell something. Yes, IoTs and environments. I think, to agree with John's point, yeah, but there's still 1,000 other ways typically you can break into an organization, because there is old stuff around. Like when last year I went out to do that HP thing about printers and printer security. I thought, well, printers, they're the original IoT device, because they're on everybody's network and nobody knows about them, and they've never been patched, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, did you get to meet Christian Slater?
He did. You did. Yeah.
I did meet Christian Slater.
What I think is more scary than the IoT threat, and I agree with John, it's about implementing new technologies and never really taking anything away, and not fully understanding the new technologies. And while IoT devices could pose a risk, I think what's higher up,
or not fully understanding the old technologies either. True, but go on.
But I think in terms of new technologies, if I look at the way that development teams are developing software today with Agile and DevOps, and specifically really automating the inclusion of other software modules, whether those be open source or just in a marketplace that you're working in, and not understanding the security risk or even a way to evaluate those security risks, I think is way more important. I also think that your cloud and container infrastructure, there's so much new technology in your infrastructure, the way you're implementing applications or implementing your infrastructure today, that we don't understand. I think those two things, in my mind, are way higher up on the list for enterprise security than someone plugged a random printer or IoT device on the network. I think in terms of risk, your development process and your new infrastructure methods are of much greater concern.
The other thing is, I wonder if this is a sound business strategy for a lot of these companies. They keep on touting IoT, 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 and our customers aren't clamoring for IoT security solutions. Right. I mentioned before, we do over 300 assessments a year. And this is not something that we're seeing as a massive groundswell in the industry, that customers are asking for this. So I almost wonder if it's because, like Mirai and some of the botnets and the Dyn DNS attack, that it was such a huge public attack that happened, right? That all these vendors and the executives associated with them are all like, oh crap, we need to do something that solves this IoT problem right now, because look, it's in the news. And it didn't really reflect, because a lot of those IoT devices aren't actually in enterprises. A tremendous amount of those IoT devices are actually home devices that were compromised. So you can't solve this problem because it's not just one specific area where it exists.
I think you have to take into account almost everything in the enterprise news here is a press release of some sort. So they do have to get in their buzzwords, and IoT is one of those that almost guarantees you funding right now. So absolutely, it's going to get thrown in there. But I agree. Like, we shouldn't have any solutions that are specific to just IoT. Like, that should be baked into just your general asset management or your due diligence program. Make sure you're not bringing in something riddled with security holes.
Qualys has made an acquisition. They acquired Second Front Systems. This really sounds like a partner that was reselling Qualys in the government space and really was just absorbed into Qualys.
I think Second Front was just really, really successful at what they did.
Yeah, and those they couldn't help but buy them, right, and integrate them into the fold. I don't think this really
good way to get bought, actually.
Yeah, become like their best partner, right? And they're like, who are we going to acquire today? Well, who's the partner that's, helping us the most and making us the most money and getting us the most customers? Let's just bring them into the fold. I don't think it's really anything more than that. I think it's a good move.
I do also want to call out the Qualys marketing team because at the bottom of this was the most important blurb for me. Qualys will host an event to launch the Qualys Gov platform on June 6, 2018 at the International Spy Museum. And that's just knowing your target audience. Yep. And well played, Qualys. Well played.
Yep. Twistlock has made an announcement that they will support cloud-native applications running in AWS with the Amazon's Elastic Container Service for Kubernetes, or EKS. Basically, that means they can apply container security even if you're using Amazon's hosted Kubernetes service, which seems to be all the rage. My question is, what if you're not, or what if you change gears at this point and you move to some other kind of orchestration platform, or your orchestration platform isn't living in Amazon? It kind of pigeonholes you into Amazon, which for a lot of organizations might be okay, but for some it might not. So just be mindful of these solutions today. Thoughts or opinions on that?
This whole entire industry, like the whole Dockerized and containerized security and services in the cloud, is a full train wreck. It's not going to get better for a long time.
It's a lot of new technology. Adrian?
Yeah, I think it's tough when it's changing that quick. And we've continually seen Docker just kind of pull the rug out from under some of these standalone Docker security companies, where either through acquisitions or building their own security pieces of it. So if you're somebody like Twistlock, I think you definitely want at least portions of your product to be agnostic to what container solutions being used or where it's being used. It is a pretty interesting approach that they have, where they basically whitelist what can be run in the Docker container. It's pretty neat because you could even have, say, Netcat, but when you're running the baseline whitelisting, when you're doing that baseline run, if Netcat is never used to open a listening port, then you won't be able to do it when it's running in production, for example.
What was I going to say? Anyway, I lost it. Let's move on to the next story then.
Dojo.
So this is
I have a completely off-topic comment, Paul.
Okay.
The way that we're presenting everybody right now makes me wish that our engineers could figure out a way for us to play Security Weekly Hollywood Squares.
Yes.
Or we could be like, here's a story.
The Brady Bunch.
Friendly podcast.
Or the Brady Bunch. Now, that would be a great intro. We need to work on that.
This is an announcement.
We need to all pop up like in sequence.
That's it.
Oh, I went the wrong way.
So
anyway, what's the next on the news?
Dojo by BullGuard is an intelligent IoT vulnerability scanner. I don't understand exactly what this product is.
But it's specifically for home users, as near as I can tell.
Because it was for, thank you, John, for communication service providers, which is kind of an interesting approach that potentially has the ability to make an impact on the security of IoT devices. If we enable the communications providers to provide a much better service than they're providing today and manage the security of some of the home users, we wouldn't have things like Mirai that can take down portions of the internet.
Mm-hmm. I think it's cool that there's a product that's trying to go into this space, but once again, I don't see a lot of home users that are like, you know what, honey, I think that we need an IoT vulnerability assessment scanning device for our home. And you know what? And in all honesty, they do.
Yeah.
But it's how do you actually make the bridge to the point where people start taking that level of ownership and responsibility for their devices? That's what's missing, and hopefully they can pull it together.
So there's a lot of these devices out now, and I want to say BullGuard acquired Cujo, which is one of these consumer, like right around $100, $130 price point. I think Bitdefender's new box, the version 2, is priced at $200, which I think is a little on the high end for something that doesn't replace your router, doesn't replace something existing on your home network. But there's about a dozen and a half, maybe 20 products in this category, and I'm pretty sure BullGuard acquired Cujo, which I assume Dojo would be part of Cujo. I don't know.
So speaking of acquisitions, this was the thought that I had basically in our previous story. So Microsoft bought GitHub. Now a lot of people are up in arms about that, and they're saying that they're leaving. But I think they really, from everything I've read, they don't have a real good reason other than they just don't trust Microsoft and think they're going to kill open source, which I think they're wrong. I think Microsoft's supporting open source. But like, at what point does Docker get bought? And how does that impact the enterprise today, or does it? Is that just a marketplace move and Docker's owned by one of the large companies out there? Is it Amazon? Is it Google? Is it Microsoft? Or does Docker
They're going to get
carry
bought
on?
by a big player. They have to get bought by a big player.
A couple of years ago, Microsoft wanted to buy them. Yeah, maybe Red Hat, because Red Hat bought... who did Red Hat buy? Oh, they bought CoreOS.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Then no.
So, yeah, I think that's interesting. Microsoft did try to buy Docker 2 years ago for $4 billion, and that was a rumor and never materialized. It's kind of interesting. So we'll see.
They should have done it.
They just should have done it, right?
They should have taken it.
They should have taken that. Because, well, Microsoft is now well positioned. If you own GitHub and you own Docker, like, you're in well positioned to take a huge market share from a lot of the container space that's out there today. A lot of the DevOps space, I should say. So Fortinet acquires Bradford Networks, which is interesting. When I worked at university, I evaluated a lot of NAC solutions. Bradford was one of them. They were big in the university space. I didn't follow them much after that. I don't know if anyone else on the panel today has, but
no.
Their description of it, Fortinet's now with providing continuous visibility, microsegmentation, and access control technology. I mean, that's essentially what we termed as NAC several years ago, and I think it is just going to now be a feature inside of Fortinet, and maybe that's where the NAC space is going.
Yeah, I've noticed Fortinet, WatchGuard have been doing a lot of strategic acquisitions, to give them just more and more pieces of the product puzzle there. A lot more software solutions and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, this is it's a good deal for Fortinet, who can just bake this in to the hardware they already have.
Sure. The last story that we had here was an announcement from Tenable that announced some enhancements and updates to its cloud platform. So they're able to identify and track assets in Google's cloud, as well as Microsoft Azure, in addition to the already supported AWS, which I think is really cool. Their SaaS offering now provides automatic security scanning for running containers in production environments, which I thought it did already, but that's interesting.
Yeah, I thought it had done that for a while.
Yep, and now they've enhanced their web application discovery capabilities as well. So it looks like an update to their capabilities across the board. I mean, I haven't worked at Tenable in over 2 years now. I still follow the space as closely as I can, but I don't have that insider view anymore. The Tenable IO platform, to me, is very strong in providing that functionality in all of these areas that we mentioned and increasing their functionality in all those areas. The reports I hear is like some of those more enterprise features being somewhat lacking in that IO platform as it matures. Integration, role-based access control, reporting is still, I think, a huge issue. Reporting and remediation in vulnerability management is, a lot of people, I mean, those of us on the panel, and those of us listening know that, you probably have a different solution and you go to company to company, and they all have different solutions for analyzing their results and managing the remediation process. So I still think there's a gap. I think that's why we've seen companies like RiskSense in entire new categories created, like security orchestration and automation, really be on the rise.
So what do you think of, and I don't know, once again, you haven't been there for a long time, but have you looked at or had anybody walk through the Lumen cyber benchmarking solution?
I haven't heard of that one.
Because, yeah, it's kind of in line with what you were just talking about. I just don't know how well it's put together from Tenable's product offering. So it might be one of those things. Maybe we can get someone on from Tenable to walk through and explain what it's actually doing for that benchmark overall risk score.
Yeah, and I don't know. I see the three major vulnerability scanning players, Qualys, Rapid7, and Tenable, all going in slightly different directions and trying to diversify in different areas, which really means I think today you have to evaluate the space closely and have a really good set of requirements and goals for your program, and then pick the vendor that's right for you. And I think they're all doing some great things and have all kind of slightly diversified and matured in the past 10 years or so. From just, hey, we have a vulnerability scanner to, we have different strengths in different areas. I think Rapid7 is a great choice because they have that security orchestration and automation built into their or they're building it into their product line today because they made the acquisition of Command. So,
yeah, I think there's a huge opportunity for mitigation here. Like, what do I do if I can't patch right now? What are the options? And Qualys added that WAF where they can, if they find web application vulnerabilities, they can automatically send a mitigation over to block that particular vulnerability until you can actually fix it in the application. And, I see that being potentially hugely useful, especially in large organizations where, they know it's going to take them 90 days or more, to patch something entirely across a big organization. It'd be great to be able to fill that gap with, either integrations with other products or even just text, explaining to you what your options are to mitigate a particular vulnerability until you can do something about it.
I'll be curious to see how that remediation plays out, right? I think we've kind of all yearned for, well, if the solution can find these vulnerabilities, how can it automate fixing them? Can it fix them? Can it integrate with a system that can automatically fix them? And how do we feel collectively as an industry when we implement that? And I think the SOAR market can certainly play into that and help organizations with that automation. Or maybe they're just two separate processes. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, that was it. That's the news.
All right.
Nobody has anything else? Sorry, I'm out of stories. That's it. We covered them all. It was kind of a light news week.
We managed to get through all of them. That's fantastic. We usually don't, actually.
Yeah. Well, this was kind of, again, there wasn't as many as a normal week, so not sure what the lull was, but that's it. Adrian, thank you very much for appearing on this episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. Jeff and John, thank you as always. And with that, that will conclude this episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. We'll see you next time.